Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Today my guest is Marty Rawson. First, a couple of quick announcements. Great ways to help support Forbidden Knowledge News. Watch the Forbidden documentary, Occult Louisiana, free on Tubi and multiple other streaming platforms. You can get a Rokfin premium membership at rokfin.com/FKN+, and always download the audio episodes of Forbidden Knowledge News through Spreaker. Finally, we're booking guests for October. If you have suggestions or you'd like to be a guest, email me forbiddenknowledgenews@gmail.com. Today I want to welcome Marty Rawson. With decades of experience in spirituality and metaphysics, he helps others discover their own inner divinity and form a personal spirit alliance. He is the author of It Doesn't Have to Be This Way, A Spirit Alliance, sharing hard-won spiritual wisdom as a teacher. Marty, welcome. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Excellent. It's great to have you. Today we're going to share your understanding of the multidimensional nature of our reality, life beyond our physical incarnation, as well as different types of intelligences that we may be possibly interacting with at all times. And this alone covers a lot, and I'm sure there's many more rabbit holes we'll jump into along the way. But this is your first time on. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and what led you down your path.
Well, I've actually had experiences with the spiritual and paranormal metaphysical worlds my entire life. It started when I was a child and has continued on fairly sporadically my entire life. And so I realized when I was young that you didn't really talk about this sort of stuff with just everybody. So for the most part, most people never knew half the world I lived in. And so, yeah, it's been an interesting life and all of that. And about 25 years ago, I was very close to dying. And I had an act of divine intervention that saved my life. And they've basically been leading me along the way ever since in healing my life and turning things around. So, yeah, it's I've experienced both the light and the dark.
If you could you tell us a little bit about some of the earlier experiences that you had?
Yeah, the very first one that I had is probably going to be one of the more unbelievable ones, but I was only about 7 years old, and I was going to this church every day where they had a summer classes for children, and both of my parents had to work, and so it was basically the best place to put your kids that was safe, you know, they figured, and that. Anyway, they took us down to this park one day, and everybody ran ahead of me and got onto the swings and stuff. And so I just walked up and leaned up against a tree waiting my turn. And I remember looking down at my feet, and the very next thing that I knew, I was walking back from the other end of the park, and everybody was gone. And about the time that I really kind of started to freak out, I remembered I had just vague memories of being with a group of beings, and I knew that they had helped me, and I knew that I loved them and I wanted to go with them. I didn't want to come back here. And I knew that they had done something that really helped me, but I didn't know what it was. And so while I'm standing there kind of in a bewildered state, as you can well imagine, I hear one of the nuns coming and screaming my name. And come to find out, I've been missing for a couple of hours. And all I knew is that one minute I was standing next to a tree, and the next minute I was walking back towards where I had been. And so that was the first major thing that happened to me that that really stands out yet to this day. And so I carried on, and about 3 years later, in that same town, I was walking through a parking lot, and all of a sudden my vision changed, and all of the colors, whether it was in the sky or the buildings or anything, everything like just came alive and got more vivid. And I heard this voice say, "This is not the way it's supposed to be, and it doesn't have to be this way." And at very first, I thought that they were talking about basically my home life, because our family wasn't exactly really stable, shall we say. And then I got this huge download of visions that showed what was going on. Now, this was in the late 60s, and I saw really all of the wars and the violence and corruption and the riots and all of the different things that was taking place at this time. And I realized, oh, they're talking about our entire planet. And it never did occur to me to be freaked out about that voice. There's so much that I look back on it, and I realized that I took so much for granted that I find it funny now, that when you look back and you go, wow, how come you didn't wonder about this, or, all of that. But I was more focused on what it was showing me. And so by the time I was 9 or 10, I was really starting to pay attention to the news and everything, and trying to find out what was going on in the world. And what really bothered me was I couldn't understand why people were just so mean to each other, and why they lied and hurt one another and did all the things that they do. And so those were the first two major things that happened to me in my life, where I realized that, things were happening to me that weren't very common with other people. And, so.
And you said later on you had a divine intervention. Tell us a little bit about this, and when was this?
That was 26 years ago tomorrow.
Wow.
Yeah, literally tomorrow. It'll be exact 26 years. And by the time I got to 26 years ago, I had lost all hope for our society, for humanity, because it seemed to me that not everybody, but a lot of the people seemed to like the corruption. They liked the violence. They liked the wars. They liked all of that. And you can't help somebody that doesn't want help. And nobody seemed to want to listen. So I quit talking. And basically I dove into a bottle and ruined my life, made a lot of bad decisions, a lot of bad choices. And you know the story. You just spiral downwards. And I realized that they had tried to get, afterwards, I realized they had tried to get my attention many times before this. But finally, one night I couldn't go to work. I was working graveyards at the time. And I got a headache, which is really unusual. I don't get headaches very often. But this one hurt so bad I couldn't even go to work. And so I just went to bed. I didn't drink anything. I didn't, I just went to bed. And sometime in the middle of the night, I heard what sounded like to me was somebody hitting. Have you ever seen those great big 20-foot gongs that the
Yeah.
Chinese have? Okay. Well, it sounded like somebody hit one of those with a sledgehammer
Mm.
right next to my bed. And I literally woke up and I was about a foot off my bed with my eyes just like saucers. Okay. Wide. And I sat up and immediately I started rationalizing, what was that? Maybe that was the front doorbell and my mind just, blew it out of proportion or something. So I got up and looked around and there was nobody there. So I went back to bed, and as soon as my head hit the pillow, I started having this vision. And it was as if I was right there. And in this vision, I was sitting kind of in a lotus position on top of the engine of a train.
Mm.
And this train was going up through the mountains. I live in the Rocky Mountains, and this was up in the Quakies, up in the higher altitudes, and it was increasing speed, even though it was kind of going uphill a little bit. And finally, it came around a corner, and there was just the mountain right in front of us. And there was no tunnel, just the tracks going straight up to the mountain wall. The train speeded up, hit the rock wall head on, and exploded. And I flew backwards, tumbling backwards, and I knew that I had died in this vision. And immediately after that happened, the same thing started all over again. But this time, when I got up to that last bend going towards the mountain, the train took a spur off to the right. And it went up, and then it leveled off. And I started looking around, and there was just all of these flowers and plants, and everything was it was peaceful woods. I mean, it was really beautiful. And it just kept going up and leveling off, and was a really nice journey. And the next thing I know, I'm literally sitting in my bed, sitting up, and there is an extremely large man at the foot of my bed. He's a full 8 feet tall. His head is right up against the ceiling, about 4 feet wide. And there's another one who's maybe an inch or two shorter than him, but easily an inch or two wider and thicker than him, that's standing right next to him. And they are dressed in black. And these guys are bigger than any human I've ever even heard of. And what was weird about it was that normally, of course, you would be quite startled and terrified. At least that would be, I think, the normal response to something like that. But what I felt was a thickness of love that was so thick, fear couldn't even exist.
Now, did they have any discernible features, or could you just see the color black?
It was just black clothing, like black robes. Okay. And I don't know if they had hoods up or what, but it was like, because at the time I was absorbing so much stuff that I don't really remember seeing like faces. Okay. Like when I look at you, I can see your face, but when all of this was going on, it's like they had faces, but I wasn't paying attention to that. And the very first thing that I thought was, oh my God, this is what home feels like. We never get to feel this here. Which kind of seemed like an odd thought to have afterwards, because that proved to me that I knew what home felt like, and um, and so I could not be afraid. And after I thought that, I looked at the one at the end of the bed, and I know he said this telepathically, but there was it was just as loud as if somebody was talking to me. There was no difference whatsoever. And he said to me, this is your last warning, quit or die. And I said, well, what do I do if I have alcohol in the house? I'll drink it. I know me. And he said, you've already been told what to do. And that's when I remembered about 2 weeks before that, the gal that I was dating talked me into going to a card reader. And this little old lady that I'd never met asked me if I drank a lot and told me that they are screaming at you to quit drinking. And so I quit for 3 days till somebody made me mad. And then I went home and opened a bottle again. I mean, hey, I'm not, it's just what happened. Okay. So I dove back into the bottle again, and then they gave me my last warning. And then he showed me again, or I should say, he let me experience what I would feel like if I succeeded in drinking myself to death. Because it's just another form of suicide, and I was doing it to myself knowingly. And I never knew until that point how sacred these lives are. That we really do consider these lives to be extremely sacred, especially when we're in the higher realms. And the feeling that I had was so, and it wasn't anybody else judging me, it was me. And so the feeling that I had from what I had done was so strong that I immediately decided that no matter what happened in this lifetime, it wasn't worth feeling that way. It just wasn't worth it. So, I would rather finish this out and endure whatever was going on, whatever was going to happen. And then he told me, you don't, it doesn't have to be like this again. He said, your life can change. You can do this. And short after I came out of that, him showing me what it felt like, I found myself on my right knee, on my knee, with my head down, and I was just crying, saying, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. And he said in quite a booming voice, he said, you should be. Now get up. That's beneath who you are. And I didn't know what that even meant. But I did get up, and he said, now go back to bed. And so I just did. I'm not going to argue with him. And this time, as soon as my head hit the pillow, I was out just instantly. And the another thing that was really weird about it is that when I woke up the next morning, I started to have the thought of, boy, that was a strange dream last night. But as soon as I got to the dream, the D in dream, it felt like somebody put an axe through my head. It hurt worse than I've ever had any pain in my head in my life. And it was instantaneous. And I literally screamed, okay, it wasn't a dream. And then it instantly, just as quickly as it came, it instantly went away. And then I went, and this is quote unquote, holy shit, I didn't know you guys could do that. That hurt, you know. And it's almost like I could see him laughing, you know. It's like, damn straight we can do that, you know. And um, so I went out and sat in the living room, thought about it, you know, what am I going to do? And eventually I decided that since you don't get a rollover, you know, it isn't a Monopoly game. You don't get to roll the dice over if you actually check out. And so I thought, you know, they said it doesn't have to be the way that it was. So let's give this a try. And so I went in, found a phone book, and called up a hypnotherapist, went to the hypnotherapist and got help with drinking and cleaned up my life. And they don't tell me everything I want. They don't tell me what to do. They guide you in a much more gentle and offhands fashion than that. But they do help you, and you do get what you need when you need it.
Let's talk a little bit about your understanding of who or what they are. In often situations, they or them is the best term that we can come up with to describe the beings that we're interacting with. But there's many believe that these are extraterrestrials, angels, interdimensional, non-corporeal intelligences. There's many theories as to what we're interacting with. Some even think it's just egregores or thought forms, part of our own consciousness that helps guide us. But what do you think?
Well, I've actually had firsthand experience with just about everything that you've mentioned there. And every one of them has a different feeling to them. Okay. These two in particular individuals were actually my guardian angels.
Okay.
They are my soul's best friends, and they've been with my soul and my higher self forever. And they stepped in when they knew that I was getting close to really checking out. And but I have had, like I say, firsthand experience both with demonic forms or demons, the ascended extraterrestrials. I've even had some with non-ascended extraterrestrials, and then of course other beings of light. Okay, ascended masters in that. It's really interesting because once you get, I had to learn how to really feel energy, but once you actually attune to the subtle differences in frequencies and stuff, none of them can fool you. Even if there's something that presents itself as a being of light, but it's not, go by the feeling, because the feeling won't lie. Okay. The appearance might, but the feeling won't. Okay. And so, yeah, it's kind of an interesting deal. These were definitely my guardian angels. I've had experience with a lot of other beings of light, as well as, like I say, several different extraterrestrials as well. And many of the extraterrestrials, especially like the Arcturians and that, literally have energy that is very close to the angelic realm.
You mentioned ascended versus non-ascended extraterrestrials. Could you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. Okay, probably the easiest way to talk about this is when people talk about the grays, okay, those for the most part come from Zeta Reticuli, the star known as Zeta Reticuli in that region, okay, and we won't go into the history of that because that'd take up your whole show. But they were very much like us at one time, millions of years ago. And they did destroy their planet. They did uh, do a nuclear war that destroyed, and they went underground, and then they had to start cloning and all of this. Now, it's been so long ago that they have uh, ventured out into the galaxy, and there's quite a few areas that actually are populated by different races of that same species. Does that make sense? Just like humans have different races, okay, there's different races of them too. And so some of those have ascended into the light, okay? And others, and actually, there's more that have ascended than have not. But the abductions and things like that happen with that we hear about, those are either humans in replicated craft, or possibly once in a while there could be some of these non-ascended grays or zeta reticuli, and they are more interested in our emotions. Okay, they're really trying to regain that aspect of their genome, is what they're really trying to do. So in all reality, the ascended races that are here on Earth outnumber the non-ascended by about 100 to 1. There are really very few that are not ascended that are still here, because the Earth is rising in its frequency, and it's getting more and more uncomfortable for everything that is not of the light. And that's why we see so much going on right now, is the darker forces that have been controlling society and everything else, they've lost control. And they are kind of frantic, and they're throwing a fit. And so even though this feels like it's really a very volatile time in our world, and it doesn't feel good, this is the growing pains of moving into something that's much better. So,
tell us more about your understanding of the dark forces, the nature of this. Is this, again, extraterrestrial influence, or would you consider this more of demonic or spiritual influence? How much control has it had for how long over humanity?
Okay, from the if you want to go into Earth and galactic history, I would say that Earth has been under control of negative, both extraterrestrial and I don't like the term demonic, but let's use that because it's handy.
Right.
Okay, so I would say that once you go to the dark side, your form doesn't really matter. Okay. Just like once you go to the light side, your form doesn't matter there, because what you're really measuring in both cases is your light quotient. Okay. But Earth has been under control of the darker forces for about 40,000 years. Okay. It's been a long time. And because of that, they have been allowed to really control the narrative and control just about every aspect of thought and the mass consciousness and everything else that has been going on. But the last several decades have provided leaps in technology that have allowed people more access to information than humanity's ever had before. And so we're breaking out of that. But if you really want to know how I think it works, I might have to give you kind of a long explanation, but I think you'll find it in. Okay. First off, I truly believe that all is one. Ultimately, all that exists is conscious living energy, and the sum total of all conscious living energy throughout all of the multiverses in all the dimensions, okay, that is what we euphemistically call God. Okay. Now, that energy, that source, that first source of all that is the source of all the individualized awarenesses in existence, no matter what dimension, no matter what. Now, the one thing that is a given that everybody agrees to is that individualized awarenesses have free will. Okay. I mean, that across the board has been pretty much agreed to. It's about the only thing everybody agrees to. Okay. Is that there is free will. Well, I believe that when the Creator created all of those individualized awarenesses, it said, go play, co-create with me. Okay. I will experience everything you do in real time while you do it. We will co-create together. But remember to co-create with love, for you must experience everything you create. Well, when you drop down into the third dimension and lower, you don't remember who you are. And that is the first time that your soul actually experiences separation from source. And that is scary. That is the first time the soul actually experiences fear. Because all of a sudden, this unity consciousness that you've always known is gone. And you don't know how to deal with that. And that's when people started saying, oh no, give me that blanket, give me that fire, that's mine. I have to protect myself. You know, I need that. Me. Okay. And so that's where the fear first came into our existence, was in that experience. Now, the two opposites, polar opposites in this universe, are actually love and fear. Okay. Love is associated with light because it has the information and all of the light from the Creator. So the farther you go away from light, you venture into darkness. And in darkness, there is usually pain. Okay, because your soul is made of light and you're taking away everything that feeds it. So it has to start feeding off of something else. And the only thing in the darkness is more fear. Okay. So the Creator, all of this stuff, all of these individualized awarenesses, no matter how they're created, are actually from and part of the Creator. Okay. And it's just all living energy. So if you want to give them names and everything, that's fine. But what they are is that they are individualized awarenesses that at some point experienced separation and went into the fear and kept going. Okay. And they can play there as long as they want, because the only place that time truly exists is right here in the third dimension with us. Okay. It's a local construct. So they can play out there in the boondocks as long as they want. And it doesn't actually hurt anything, because nothing real can be hurt. Okay. So the dark side does exist. And when you have dark entities that can control beings like humans, which we are a very young species, and so we were subject to manipulation, easy to control, easy to dominate, easy to manipulate. And so different entities and beings and star nations did actually take over and have been controlling us for their own selfish purposes. They do not want us to ascend. And part of the reason for that is because the original, what we call Homo sapiens, was not exactly like us. It did not have the ability to uh, grow spiritually, and it was basically just a slave, a slave mentality, and and that sort of thing. When the ascended star nations discovered what had been done on Earth, they threw a fit and they went to the spiritual hierarchy and they said, "This is wrong. What those beings have done is against all divine law. We are asking permission to step in and correct this so that this new life form uh, can actually grow and mature like any species should." And so they got permission. And that's when the Syrians and the Pleiadians and many more came in and started to uh, use there's genetic manipulation uh, to create what would end up becoming uh, Homo sapiens. Now, when word got out what was going on this little blue planet out on the edge of the galaxy, there were a lot of other star nations that wanted to get in on it. And so many of them did. So Earth humans, Homo sapiens, actually have about 24 different, the DNA from 24 different star nations. And with that comes the gifts that those star nations have. All we see from our point of view is the different races. So this is why there are actually different races on this earth and the differences between them. Okay. And the reason that the dark forces have always forbidden crossbreeding between races. Have you ever noticed that throughout history that's always been shunned? Okay, by the powers that be? That's because they knew that this time of the shift in energies was going to come. And they also knew that if humans ever crossbred to the point that humans contain 23 or 24 genomes, or I don't know how to say this right, but the DNA of 23 to 24 star nations all in one people, and they ascend, they're going to have the gifts, the spiritual and metaphysical gifts of all of those nations, all of those star nations. So what has taken many of these star nations millions of years to accomplish, we will have the combined skills and gifts of all of those. That will, so literally what is happening is Earth humans are going from being in the darkest of the dark to being catapulted, if we can accomplish this, into the brightest of the light. Okay. And that's why there is so many reports of star nations around us right now, is because this is the most exciting thing that is happening in the universe. No species, not only is all of this happening, but usually when a species ascends into the light, the species itself, something happens and they all die, and then they're reborn in a higher dimension, and they go on as a species that's ascended. We decided to do it the hard way. We are literally riding our planet up through the dimensions while we're ascending. That's never been done before. Okay. That's why this is so exciting, because it's never been done. And that's why more and more people are getting to the point of noticing things out of the corners of their eyes. Many people are thinking that they're seeing ghosts or shadow people or whatever. Okay. Maybe it looks like a little critter just ran across the hallway or something like that. All right. I don't know if you've had people talking about that lately, an increase in seeing this sort of thing, but everybody is seeing it. They just don't like talking about it because that's weird. Okay.
Well, it seems like if at the least, if they're not seeing it, most people are feeling something, because there is a sense of uncomfortability, to say the least, if you're unaware of some of the things that are happening, especially on the spiritual side of things. If you're not spiritual in nature and you don't believe in that sort of thing, it's probably going to get extremely difficult for you. And I see that happening for a lot of folks, especially a lot of folks buried in politics, buried in this system, thinking that this system is going to save their lives in some way, that it's going to get better by participating in it, when the truth is you have to check out of it, and that's the only way that we're going to evolve, essentially.
Amen. Amen. I'm glad you said that, because that's exactly what has to happen. Yes. Yes. Yeah, amen. What you said.
So when I look back at the events over not even just the past few years, but you can look over the decades and see that there has been a series of events that some can look at and call nefarious, but what's happening in reality is it's forcing people to become aware of the dark side and decide whether they want to align with that or not. That is where we're at right now. Is it's being presented to us, and it's up to us to decide where we want to go with it.
Exactly. And that extends right into why I want to tell people you don't need to worry about extraterrestrials. They are not, literally, the ones that are here outnumber the bad guys over 100-1, and they are way more powerful than any of the bad guys. Okay. So it really boils down to this. Just like we are finding out, when you have love and light in your life, you feel good. When you have darkness and pain and loneliness and anger and all of that, you feel bad. This is not rocket science. Which one feels better? Okay. And so all of the star nations millions of years ago went, hey guys, it's kind of obvious that it feels better way over here. Okay. And so they just all agreed, and it's like, well, yeah, duh, let's go this way. Okay. Because it is the natural way to go, because that's what nurtures your soul, because your soul is light. Okay. So the light will always win in the end, because no matter how dense you are, there's going to come a point where you just get tired of hitting your thumb with the hammer and you go, I'm going to quit doing this. And you decide to go where it doesn't hurt so bad. And the beautiful thing about it is that that's what I'm not a big fan of quoting the Bible or anything else, but the one parable that Jesus gave, I think it was Jesus, was the parable of the prodigal son. And all that was really saying is that if you went and played in the dark, That's okay. That's your lessons. Okay. This is all about lessons. You'll be welcome when you come home. Period. Okay. There is no judgment. It's all about that. All right. And so when we come into this life, when this earth first went down into lower frequency, the light just decided, well, let's use this to our advantage. And so earth became the emotional university of the universe. Why? Because we are 70% water on this planet. Emotions run extremely high, and you can do more growth in one lifetime than what you can in a million years in the higher dimensions. So advanced souls started coming to Earth to really get a boost in their soul growth, because it was the hardest game in town. And okay, so that's why spirit always uses the dark side to their advantage. Okay, just like with individuals in this life, the dark side is usually the first thing that people encounter because we were so much closer to them in frequency. We were a lot closer to them. We could hear things go bump in the night. We could have different things that would happen that would scare the hell out of people. But eventually you have to come to the conclusion that if there's a dark side, there has to be a light. And so literally acknowledging the existence of the dark side is the first step to going home, as far as when you're in one of these lifetimes. Okay. And so, like I say, spirit always uses the dark to their advantage. And so if you do run into something on the dark side, send it gratitude and appreciation for all of the help that they've given humanity in waking up. Okay. And in all reality, that gratitude and that love that you can work up is your best defense from them anyhow, because they want to feed on fear.
It makes me think of how important our perception of things is right now. If we are looking at things in a positive way, the more we are bringing forward positive experiences in our lives, it's like we are perpetuating that positive energy. Some people look at this and they think it's new age woo-woo BS, but it's absolutely true. I think it's all about personal accountability, facing those things that you believe are having negative impacts in your life and changing them into something positive.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes. The more you bring love and light into your world, the more you're going to decrease the darkness. And so you just keep on going every day, getting back up and saying, nope, I'm going to stay in the light. I'm going to stay with love and light and all of the positive stuff. And I guarantee you that if you keep it up, you will change your life and you will change the direction that you've been going.
There seems to be multiple possibilities of where we could go collectively right now. It does seem like there are going to be groups of people that still align with the materialistic reality, that still feel more comfortable interacting with the dark side. And it seems like we may have breakaway civilizations, breakaway communities, different essential timelines that we're on, depending on what our perception of the world is. What do you think?
I absolutely agree with that. And the thing is that I don't like to categorize people as good and bad. Okay. To me, it's more like, what level in school are you at? If you're coming to Earth and it's your first lifetime here on Earth, or it's only your 10th or whatever, you don't have a whole lot of experience under your belt as far as these worlds go, worlds of dust go. And so you've got a lot of learning to do. Okay. And so you're basically if we use this from a kindergarten level to a graduate level in university, um, many of these people that are still learning the lessons of physical reality and having all of those experiences that they need to grow and expand, okay, um, that's where they're at. Now, when we have children, if we have a kindergarten, a child in kindergarten, we don't consider them less than because they're in kindergarten. That's just how old they are, and that's where they're at. Okay, somebody that's at university isn't more of a human than they are. They're just older and have more experience and have been around longer. And so that's the way I look at these different souls. And so those that are a little too young to understand and have an attachment for the higher realms, they're not ready yet. They're literally not ready yet. And that's okay. They're going to be fine because they're going to have their own chance in the future to follow right along. But there's a great deal of amount of people that are ready. And so if you have a spiritual nature and you actually align with what is being said and all of this, you are going to have the opportunity to jump onto this higher timeline. And literally, I believe the two of them are just going to slowly split. And I actually think that we are in the split right now. Because many of the more negative peoples that I've known in my life have all faded away. They're slowly fading. They're not coming around. I don't hear them. I don't see them. Okay. And so I don't have the exact answer as to how it is going to play out specifically, but that to me is the mechanics behind it. And I think that it is going to be a split, and eventually the two train tracks are going to diverge enough to where you don't even see them anymore.
Right on. Now, for the last few minutes we have, you mentioned as a talking point in your email ascension symptoms, and we were discussing the symptoms that people are having right now. And I think there's a lot of misunderstandings and new age definitions of ascension that confuse people. And I'd like to talk a little bit about what we're experiencing, what ascension really looks like. And we touched on it a little bit. It's basically our perception changing into something more positive, aligning with positive energy on a more consistent basis, really.
Yeah. I would like to, I'm really glad you brought this up because, like you said, a lot of, and I don't know what a lot of the new age people are doing. I don't even like that term anymore. But it's not all rose-colored glass type viewpoint, okay? And the term ascension is a handy one, and that's what we call it and everything else. But what we're doing is we are actually bringing in higher dimension frequencies of light into our physical bodies. So it's more of a descension of the higher frequencies into matter, okay? Now, when you are a human being and you have a nervous system and a brain and all of this stuff, that doesn't feel good, okay? Because we are filtering 40,000 years worth of muck and grime and heavy, dirty energy that humanity has built up on this planet with all the dirty, rotten, nasty things we've done to one another for the last 40,000 years, okay? Well, that's why Spirit is constantly saying, we are so proud of you, okay? Because we volunteered to come in and be the ground crew to not only filter that energy and transmute it, but to help change the mass consciousness here. So as you bring in these higher vibrational frequencies into your body, you have, whether you realize it or not, you have stored a lot of memories, a lot of emotions, a lot of traumas and stuff, actually in many lifetimes, but especially this one, that are still unsettled issues. And so as this literal light comes in, it stirs up a lot of that uh, lower frequency energy. And the first thing that you have is old memories coming up, old things that have happened to you that hurt you or made you angry or affected you in some negative way. And so you have this plethora of memories coming up, and you're wondering, I thought I settled that. Why is that coming up again? And on top of that, we most everybody is feeling an extra sense of fatigue, tiredness and fatigue that just, it's like, good Lord, I can't get enough rest. I can't get enough sleep. I have headaches now. I have tension in my neck and shoulders. My joints ache. This is happening. I've got skin rashes. I've got this and that and the other. Well, all of this is because your body is trying to cope with all of these higher frequency energies that are transmuting those lower frequency energies that you need to let go of. Mm. So the best thing that you can do is get as much rest as you can, drink as much water as you can, and try to eat good for yourself, and be gentle with yourself. Anything that comes up, let it go. Just let it go. It doesn't serve you anymore. You really just thank it and say, you know what? I don't need you anymore. Appreciate the lesson. See you, bye. Okay. But there is, everybody that I know of that I've talked to literally has been going through the same thing. So, and boy, I tell you what, there's a lot of anger right now. And so I really caution everybody, be kind to other people as well, because you don't know what they're feeling. And the last thing we want to do is having fights with one another, especially when we're trying to go in a positive direction. And you don't know, the other person might not be in a good place. So just be gentle with yourself and with others. And, because when push comes to shove, we're all just walking each other home. And, we need to be there for one another.
Any thoughts about our future? The ridiculous ideologies that have come out over the past few years that are trying to get people to latch on to politics and the dark side of this reality has gotten so overboard that I see a lot of people are starting to become aware that there's something fundamentally wrong with our systems, something fundamentally wrong with our political system. And that's a good start, but there's still a lot of people who are relying on these systems, and it may be a very difficult time in the next few years as things progress, because it seems like things are getting weirder by the day. But what are your thoughts on our future, and do you think within our lifetime that we could experience something different than the parasitic systems we've been under?
I do. I actually have great hope for our world and humans in general. I truly believe that we've passed the point of no return, and that the dark side cannot win now. But what they are doing is they're throwing as big a fit as possible, because that's all they've got left. That's literally all they have, is to throw a fit. And what this whole political thing and all the corruption that you see coming to light, it's going to continue to come more and more and more out in the open. I don't think we've seen out in the public anything compared to what we're going to see in the very near future. I think it's, and the beautiful thing about it is that the more corruption and the more that humanity sees the truth of what you were talking about, the corruption and all of this, and the parasitic nature of the corporations and all that is, um, the more they're going to say, you know what, this isn't right. This isn't what we choose. We need something better because we need to leave this earth better off, and we need to leave the earth better off for our children and our grandchildren. And I think that, but unfortunately, with humans, things have to get pretty ugly before people come to that conclusion. And so it's going to keep getting uglier until enough people wake up that say enough.
Right.
And I do know that there is a lot going on behind the scenes where people have been working for a long time to create systems so that we don't have to go through a total collapse. And they're ready to step forward and say, okay, we actually have alternatives to the way this has been ran. And rather than a system that works for just a few people at the very top, let's have a system that works for the highest good of everybody. And this will be a system that will actually work, because there is enough abundance for everybody to live a comfortable life, to be in good health, to have a good education, and to live a happy life. There is enough. It's just that you can't get there if you're controlled by a few greedy people.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I really think that we have a great, beautiful future to look forward to. And I think people are going to start seeing it in the next few years.
Right.
I don't think it's going to be a long time off. So I definitely think it's going to be within our lifetimes. We're going to see the beginning of this. And
that would definitely be.
And know that by the time we go, we've done some good.
Yeah, that would definitely be a wonderful thing. Marty, thank you so much. This was great information. I'd definitely love to have you on in the future. There's much more we can discuss. Before I let you go, let the audience know how they can pick up your book and find out more about you.
All right. My book is It Doesn't Have to Be This Way, A Spirit Alliance. And it is on Amazon in paperback and Kindle, and it's also on Audible. My website is aspiritalliance.com, and I also have a Facebook group called Spirit Alliance. So you can contact me at aspiritalliance@gmail.com, and you can check out my website for all of the healing modalities that I do, and all of the other stuff. So yeah, I'm fairly busy.
Great. It's a great time to be busy. Marty, thank you so much. Like I said, we'll definitely do this again in the future. And until next time, everyone, have an excellent evening. We will talk again on Monday, and we'll see y'all then.